PointsTV.com, and we're glad to see you out there ready to go. We're ready to go here, and if we're not ready to go, we have to go anyway. In order to go by the studio, they kind of do the pointing, and that's the sign that we have to begin the program. We're very glad you're here on the Monday after Thanksgiving, and I really hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving myself. I was celebrating everything under the sun. I couldn't believe how much celebration I was doing. I was glad to see I didn't watch a lot of. I watched one team in college. I don't watch pro football anymore. You start kneeling on me, and that I can't watch you because maybe when they're coming back now, they're doing the Trump. Is that a dance? I guess that's a dance. Uh, Trump doesn't move his feet. He kind of does the upper body movement. I, I think he needs to give it up, by the way. But I enjoyed. I have one team that I watch in football, and that's the Colorado Buffaloes, and I watch them because I like the way that Deion Sanders hounds his team and hounds himself. I didn't. He's a very religious man, and I like the fact that he has his team under control, and they seem to be a very religious group. So I'll be watching. I'm watching to see what kind of bowl game they're going to be in. But I watched the football game starring the Buffalo team. They played Oklahoma this past weekend, and I was watching that and eating my. Let's see how many days of turkey. My third. Let's see, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days of turkey, and then I made a turkey sandwich on Sunday. I was eating turkey. I was in such a good mood. I couldn't believe how good I was feeling because I really think the country got back on the right track with this election on November the 5th. And I have to commend the country again. I think that the country, I don't know if they really saw the bullet that was aimed at at the heart of the nation, but they were able to get past all the propaganda and fight through the maze. And they did a wonderful job, really, of understanding why they have been losing these elections because this country's not been voting.
Sorry about that. There's a
Yeah.
bit feedback. Yeah, sorry.
It went back over the same thing.
Yeah, that's what it was. I just switched over. I was checking the stream. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, so it should continue or start over.
Oh, continue. You're doing okay.
Okay, we had we had a glitch in the system here. No, what I was saying is that I was in such a good mood over the course of the holiday because I think we really dodged a bullet that was aimed at the heart of this country. Uh, these people do not mean well for the United States of America. We have American citizens in this country who are not really for the country. We have what Peter Schweitzer has a book out called no, that's David Horowitz has a book out called The Enemy Within. And as hard as that may well be to believe, we have enemies inside the country. And Donald Trump raises every once in a while when he sees I think he asks himself a lot of times, why is that a problem? And he's doing things that you would think would be applauded, and he's running into a lot of opposition. He said it has to be because they hate the country, and I see some examples of that. People that are pulling against the country and trying to sabotage. They're trying to do that right now. They're trying to. Trump is putting all of his ducks in order so that he hits the ground running on January the 20th when he takes an inaugural oath and then is installed in the presidency as the 47th president after being the 45th president of the United States. We are looking at now something that had not been done since 1892 when Grover Cleveland was elected in 1884 and then there was a skipping over. He lost the election in 1888. That was won by Benjamin Harrison, the 23rd president, and then Grover Cleveland did something that had not been done before until Trump did it this past election, and that was to have non-consecutive terms in the Oval Office, or in the, I should say the Oval Office because it hasn't always been the Oval Office, but non-consecutive terms in the presidential office. Cleveland being 22 and 24, and then Donald Trump now being the 45th and soon to be the 47th president of the United States. And I was just I've been in a euphoric mood ever since that happened. Because I had some, I saw the handwriting on the wall as we were getting close to the date of the election, the final date of the election, because we vote now in infinity because the way they're disenfranchising voters today is that that the disenfranchisement is hidden within the voting process. That's why it's so hard for people to detect that they're being disenfranchised because of what they were doing in the past. Because we were not voting for these radical policies and all of that. We were being outflanked. We were traditionally going to hold on to the idea we have voting uh, on the day in which it's been assigned. The the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November every 4 years, and we were traditionalists going to hold on to that until we began to see that you can't win elections if you're going to vote on one day and then the other parties are voting 2 months ahead of time. You get to the date of the election, traditional date of the election, but they've been voting 2 months prior to that, and you're trying to make up for that in one day, and you just can't do that in one day because a lot of things happen sometime. And what they would also do, you saw what would happen. They would have glitches in the system, and lines would form. People get tired and leave out and wouldn't vote, and so it's hard. It was hard to do the catch up. So they would. It was a kind of way, a deliberate way of doing it. It's a Democratic Party having explored another way of disenfranchising the voters, which they've had a history of that. I mean, the literacy test, the poll tax, the white primaries, and other things of that sort.
I just like to know how anybody who trusts the Democratic Party, especially minorities, they were always the anti-minority party. Somehow it's morphed, and now whatever they do,
Hmm.
the minorities still accept them and don't even question them. I mean, has the payout been so great that can over seriously just overlook their arrogance and their resistance against allowing these people to have rights? I mean, I don't know. It's and there's always a Democrat. Yeah, it's like they'll put it on the Republican and everybody buys into it. And the
Hmm.
Republican
That's
Party
true.
doesn't go and scream bloody murder. Hey, time out. Here's who did this. My friend who has been working with the Republican Party for years. So I was saying like they always get away with everything, and he got so tired because they said, "Why don't you raise more hell about this?" Well, we just think that it would be just detrimental to the culture. Well, it's like, no, you're getting blamed for something they did. And you're getting labeled with that brush. You're getting painted with that brush. You should be saying screaming bloody murder. You are being victimized. And I mean, I just never understood the Democrat. I mean, the people who vote for Democratic Party can go, just look at all their glaring. I mean, not omissions, just recreation. You don't only just cover it up. You place it on the party who didn't do it,
Yeah,
and they get a carte blanche approval of that.
John, it's been very interesting to look at this phenomenon you're describing because what the Democratic Party does is that it spreads this its own venom as if it is countrywide and nationwide, and it's really the I mean they're practicing these kinds of racial politics, and the country's getting the blame for it when it's really the a party centric kind of thing. This country, we talk about the country America being racist. Well, if America is a racist country, it has to be racist in its documents. And you don't find that. If you understand the documents that were in fact created by the framers of this country, you can see that, that's not the case, because the documents are anti. Um, the documents are universal in their expression. All men is one of the things in the Declaration of Independence, for example. And then it says in the preamble to the Constitution, we the people of the United States. And they're saying that even in the throes of slavery being practiced in the country, we the people of the United States. It didn't say we the white people. I don't. I you have to. In my class, I had the students to learn the preamble to the Constitution so they could see it for themselves, and every student had to recite it. That's how I started getting into the things I'm into now. I mean, I'm on another level of that, but the starting point was in the high school class. I just simply began to graduate from that level to different levels, but that's the grounding point. And I think it was in the what grade was that? Would that have been in? That might have been in the was that 11th grade? Could have been 12th grade. I know you had to do it before you got you had to do that before you got to high school. And you look at the wording in the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And there's no quantification of that to a specific group. It's talking about the people of the country. See, we don't. I think what we're not getting when we study American history, we're not getting the saddling of this country. Let me put it a different way. This country being saddled with certain institutional means of doing business. And slavery was a British. Well, it really, I couldn't even say that. Slavery was really a universal. And you have to go and read one of the best books. You have to go and read Thomas Sowell's book, Black Skin, White Mask. Let me see if I can think of the page number, because you may not want to read the whole book. Go read page 104. Start there. And that's the beginning of the chapter that talks about slavery and so on and so forth. He does a very good job with that. And what Sowell is saying is that he's talking about the universality of it. So the practice of slavery was passed down, but it's amazing what the framers, did with that, and how they accommodated it at the same time. Were beginning to put things in place that would, in fact, bring restitution to the institution. And that was to, in fact, at some point, as their goal was and their hope was, that at some point it just fades out on its own if it's given more time to just die rather than creating a conflict. They did not handle it the same way that it was handled later on, 74 years after the after the meeting in Philadelphia, because in 1888 and 1861, the country is now at its throat. Not over that though, over the throat for not having reconciled some of the other problems that were there, of which they cleverly made slavery the centerpiece of it which was a disguise of what really was going on. This was really Charles Adams. This was a tax war. That's the claim that I'm making based upon the documentation, not based upon these theoreticals that have been put in place to be able to hide what really was going on. Because you got 700,000 people that died in this war, you cannot make Lincoln this person at the top and then claim that they're fighting a war over money, over tariffs, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, what I came to the studio today to talk about primarily was what happened this weekend. What happened? As a matter of fact, yesterday, and it's interesting that this would have happened yesterday. The weekend, and you kind of taking care of different things, church, uh, uh, Sunday dinner, things of that sort, and the family get meeting on Sunday. And then in the midst of all of that, and then of course the celebration of Thanksgiving and the inattentiveness to political things that are going on because you have your family over and you are celebrating the. Is this the biggest holiday? I think it might be the biggest of the. I know it's either Thanksgiving or Christmas. I think Thanksgiving. You buy the toys at Christmas, but I think Thanksgiving, as far as the spending, it's the beginning of the spending because and they're doing they did a real thing this time about spending because they had the spending uh, going on up to Thanksgiving. Then they have Black Friday, which is it should be called Black and Blue Friday because if you open that door, you're gonna get people. They have those commercials where the guys go to the door with their arm on a sling and got a cast on the arm because last time they opened the door, people came crashing through the door to get the sales, and now they're doing. They expanded it to Saturday and Sunday, and even I forget what they call it today, but there's something going on today because they're extending the sales beyond. It's no longer just Friday and people busting loose on Friday. They're busting loose now 3 or 4 additional days leading into Christmas. But they say that Thanksgiving is the beginning of the spending spree because people are buying. We you have a big we had a big celebration. We had a big dinner. Had friends over. All the friends I had over, I must tell you, I had all the friends over that I knew were not going to be at that table arguing over politics because we all voted the same way. I made that a I made that a point. I kind of knew where people were politically because I know my family is pretty much on the same page I'm on because I have stepchildren and grandchildren, step grandchildren, and they pretty much know what to bring in that house, and they feel the same. They're pretty much on the same page I'm on. Quite frankly, I don't have there's no argument there. They want to hear what I got to say a lot of times about different things, and I have a pretty good family. I have to say my family's conservative, and that's and really I think my mom. Uh, I don't think you couldn't tell her what the politics were, but my mom was how did she raise conservative children? Because all of us are conservative in my family, and then all my stepchildren. Only one of them is still. Let's see. Only one of them is still alive. No, two of them are still alive. But it seems like my family is very conservative, and I think that comes out of the fact that we just did. I didn't necessarily emote those things in the house so much. It's just the way I carry it. I guess I was just carrying myself in a way in which those values just came through. I didn't have to do a lot of explaining about it, but I do notice that there are politics is on the conservative end of things, and of course I would still love my I would still love my family regardless, but I ain't mad at them for being on this side of the political aisle. But let me say this: I came today to talk about what occurred yesterday because I was really kind of surprised it happened as early as it did. I thought that this pardon I'm talking about this pardoning of Biden's son. I knew that Biden didn't have any respect for anybody. Didn't have respect for the Constitution, the respect for the rule of law, and any of that. I knew that wasn't going to be the driver. But I did not expect him to leave office and then leave his son unguarded with all the things his son had done. And I knew that would at some point in time this would happen. That happened yesterday, where he in fact issued the pardon, and it's a blanket pardon of his son from the year 2014. That just happened to be the year in which um, Biden's son would have taken a job in um, in Ukraine. You know, this it wasn't just Burisma. It was another job he had over there as well. The man was getting paid as a kickback, as he was in fact doing things. Had no resume in the areas he was working in. Certainly didn't have a resume in the oil. Burisma is an oil company, but that was a way of getting to the influence of the federal government, and Joe Biden was a party to that. In fact, I don't the 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 pardon of his son is a comprehensive pardon, but a lot of it is the pardon of his own behavior, because to investigate his son is really to investigate Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was the big man in that operation, and what I consider to be a crime. The Biden family is a crime family, and that pardon is as much for Joe Biden as it is for his son, because it's all intertwined and tangled in together. Because we know that the money was being funneled to the big man, and some of that money end up in other members of the family as well. So it's really a crime family. The Biden administration is a criminal. This is a criminal organization. We have a criminal administration in Washington, and don't expect anybody in Washington to call the question, because who has the moral authority to do that which is necessary to do at this point? They're not going to do to Joe Biden what they did to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump was impeached the very month in which he was stepping down based on what they said the votes were. They impeached Donald Trump the second time on the 20th. On the This was 5 days. Let's see, the 16th is 4 days. So what day was that second impeachment? I think the second impeachment was I know it was in January of 2020. He only had a few days in the White House if he's going to leave, and there was no doubt about the fact that he was going to leave, because he was not saying he's going to stay because he didn't think he had lost the election. But the same week that he was to leave the White House, they impeached Donald Trump for the second time. The first time was in August of 2020, and that impeachment fell through because it did not result in conviction in the Senate. So as he was exiting out of the White House, the anti-American element, I think that's what it is. It's the anti-American element in our Congress, in our government, and they wanted to make sure that this would never happen again, where Donald Trump, the outsider, who had come from out, the man who came out of the cold and then went into the hall of power at the very top of the hall of power. They want to make sure it never happened again. And I don't see it on the horizon they can do that, because Donald Trump is a very special character. And there are not very many with the talent this man has. This is a very talented, this man is very talented. And so they wanted to make sure they closed the gate so he would never come back again, because he had served one term. If they can keep him from serving a second term, which he'd be eligible for, because the presidents can serve 2 terms based upon the 22nd Amendment. And so they were trying to close that route, and that's where they impeached him a second time. Now, there's some claims being made that you cannot try a president after he leaves office. That part is not true. You can try a president after he leaves office through the impeachment process, but you cannot impeach him after he leaves office. There's some saying that you cannot put him on trial in the Senate once he leaves office. That's not true. What's true is that you have to bring about the impeachment. That's what they did. A few days before he left office, he was impeached the second time. And the trial was held, if I remember correctly, the trial was held in February. The president already out of office. The president was left on the 20th of January. And there was no doubt about the fact he was going to leave, although I think Trump is pretty much clear about what happened in the election, because that election, I have continued to go over those numbers, and I know, absolutely, I know that those numbers cannot be contended. There's no way in the world that those numbers can be accurate or even remotely to be true, because you just cannot get 12 million more votes as an incumbent president than you got as a non-incumbent, and then that 12 million plus votes, which is tremendous in terms of how second elections go with an incumbent president. And I look at the ones he was serving on as well, another part of that litmus test. You have the person he served under got 69.5 million votes in 2008 and got 65 million votes, 4 million votes less the second time around. That's the way elections have gone in this country. And you certainly don't see elections where the anomaly is that rather than the numbers going down, they go up dramatically to a higher level than they were when he won the first time. 63 million votes in 2016 and 75 million votes in 2020. 12 million more votes the second time than the first time. This country was very satisfied. And why would they not be satisfied given the fact that the country had been improved and Donald Trump was in fact carrying out what he ran upon? What are they running upon? He had promised to make the country great again. He was doing that. And so they're trying to bring the country back to where it was prior to Donald Trump taking office in 2017. But that horse has kind of left the stable now. People are pretty much ready to embrace "Make America Great Again," and I think that they're looking for some great things to happen. I see an energy out in the community now. People are very much looking forward to the 20th of January when Trump resumes. I think "resume" is the right word. He resumes his standing as the president of the United States. I don't think he was defeated in 2020. I just don't think that that's what happened. And you can't convince me that those numbers are accurate because we have never seen that anomaly in the history's past. You don't see it. And I know a lot of things too about what was happening with some other things I have not talked about on the air. But I also know some things that were happening by those who made comments. They've been taken out of the. You don't see them in the news anymore. You don't see them being mentioned anymore. I don't know what happened to them. I know what they were saying. I know one of the drivers that was carrying ballots around in different places, and some of the comments he made. Now you did not see it. They closed that down real quick. But there were people carrying ballots from warehouses into different places where the votes were needed, and they had them ready to go based upon the needs. So that means that they had to have ballots that were pretty much configured based upon. I tell you what it looks like, and I think I know what city it came out of. It looks like what they did in Dilly Plaza, where they made badges. Everybody was carrying. They had badges being passed around, and they had badges being made for the big event. That's why Pearson were flashing those badges when they caught them in different places they shouldn't have been, like in that railroad car, where some of those tramps were. Some of them were dressed like tramps, but they really were part of a hit team. And when they were, I can name some of the names there, but that's not important to this conversation. But when they opened up that boxcar and found person in there, and there was no reason to believe anybody was in there, but the train started moving, and they opened up that one boxcar, and they found these persons inside that boxcar and wanted to know what they were doing in there, and they flashed these credentials. They did that throughout Dilly Plaza. People out of place there, and that they had made those badges in Los Angeles. The CIA had done it, and what the CIA has done and is doing now is that they find reputable businesses, and they might be on this floor, that floor, another floor, and have the business on the first three floors, but there's a floor that's not being occupied and not being used. Anyone take and rent in a legitimate business and set up something on as they did in the case of 1963. They had the whole fourth floor as an operation for the CIA, and they were doing forgeries and things of that sort. They had badges running amok, in Dealey Plaza, and that's what you see in terms of what they're doing right now. The government just does things that have no legal validity because the government can do what it wants to do, and that's what Biden did. I don't think about. John was telling me he wasn't surprised that Biden um, actually pardoned his son this past Sunday. I was surprised by the timing of it. I didn't think he was going to leave office, leave his son uncovered, but I didn't think he would do it this early, given the fact he's on the last leg of his administration, but not this early at the last leg of his administration. I thought he would probably do it going as he's leaving out of office, have a lot of different pardons to sign as he exits, and that way the leaving is the focal point, and it's not so much going to be covered by the media. The fact that he's leaving out of office would be the headline. But because of the holiday and because people were not paying attention, had family members over and things of that sort, they he had already planned this, but he pulled the lever and made the pardon, and he made it comprehensive to the point where everything that his son could have done, even if that which he's not been charged with, is so comprehensive in terms of the way that pardon reads that it becomes impossible to make a claim about anything that's new because it's things that have been charged and things that have not been charged between the year 2014 and 2024. It covers a 10-year period of time. And anything that Hunter Biden could have done in that time period, all that's covered by the pardon. We have, and see they could still bring Biden to terms by impeaching him and bring. They're not going to do this, but he really they did it to Donald Trump. They can impeach Joe Biden, and Joe Biden should be impeached. And then, but who's going to? But where are the numbers to convict Joe Biden? There are no numbers to do that, and that's why they're not going to go through they're not going to come out in front and do that, and knowing they won't have any success in terms of the end result of it, which would be what the end result. If it's not conviction, it doesn't serve the purpose that needs to be served, and that is to remove this man from power. And they're not going to do that because we don't have I get this is parenthetical. These mealy mouth Republicans who are not going to do anything other than sit up there and grandstand, and we don't have anybody getting serious about governing in Washington. These persons are up there. They're not all the well. I don't know. See, the enemies within. This is David Horowitz's book. I think that when I say the enemies within, there's you could be consciously doing that, and you could be unconsciously doing it as well. If you're not willing to hold people accountable, and that's what and who's being held accountable? Then they're the enemies within, just like Donald Trump says. And he wonders out loud often if they love the country. They don't. A lot of them don't love. I don't know if there's any love for the country in Washington because I don't hear patriotism in Washington. I don't hear that.
Would you hear when Lindsey Graham responded to the North Carolina tragic, situation about the hurricane? He's now keep in mind he's from South Carolina, North Carolina. Obviously, he's their neighbors, right?
Mhm.
He turns and says, "Well, just think about all our friends in Israel. Actually, people kind of trying to kill them." I mean, he's disregarding the catastrophic events happened to state next door to him. his state. I mean, that's appalling. I mean, Lindsey Graham, well, just think of our neighbor, our friends over in Israel. They actually, people got trying to kill them. Well, gee, a hurricane did kill a lot of people in North Carolina, next door to you, you dumb SOB.
Yeah,
That really ticked me off.
yeah. Lindsey Graham needs to go sit down somewhere.
I mean, always Israel first for that guy, you know?
Yeah, he's very much overrated. And this man, if people knew Lindsey Graham's record in Washington, I don't know if they would have been returning him over and over again to the Senate from South Carolina. This man has this man has been a cancer on this country, and very dangerous in terms of some of the warmongering this man has been involved in. This man has not been a stopgap in terms of some of the excesses of our military. And you can go read some of the things he's been licensing as one of the forerunners in the Senate. And you really have to take your hat off to him because he's been able to get away with a lot of things because a lot of it's flown under the radar, and people have not picked up on how dangerous this man is. This man has been very dangerous in the Congress, as many of them are, probably most of them. And if we don't, and that's why I'm looking forward to the transition because this war is getting more and more out of control. The longer it goes on, the more we are facing the possibility of a war between uh, Russia and NATO, because that's a budging problem that's developing over there because they're escalating the weapons that are being used, and Russia is escalating. They have this one weapon that's a supersonic missile, and if that goes into the capital of Ukraine, that's going to do that's going to do damage that's unparalleled in the aftermath of World War II. We haven't seen any. We've had wars, but they've been mostly fought outside of NATO, and this is a country on the edge of NATO that the war really started because there were threats to bring Ukraine into NATO. And I have written about this, and I wrote about that. This war really is an aggression by NATO. This war is an aggression by the NATO nations. Because look where NATO is in terms of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Look on the map and just see where that is, and look at where NATO forces are today, right on the doorstep of Russia, in Estonia, Lithuania. They're moving closer in surrounding. Sweden is now part of that. So a lot of this is it's like a colonial enclosure, and that's the fight that is developing. If they had said they were not going to join, if Ukraine had just simply said that it would be a neutral, non-aligned country, that war would never have broken out. And I think the Biden crime family would not have benefited from that. And that's why Ukraine gets anything it wants. They want this war to continue because it's a money laundering operation. You can say what you want to about American soldiers not being involved in this war. The American soldiers are involved in this war. They are on the ground right now in Ukraine. And I tell you another thing, they're not going to have, because the press has been silenced in terms of reporting to the American people what's really going on, and the American people are not being told that they're American soldiers in Ukraine fighting. Another thing is that you're not going to, in talking about Ukraine, you'll never see two people on these talking head programs on any of the networks, you're not going to see Jeffrey Sachs from Princeton, and you're not going to see John Mearsheimer from the University of Chicago, because they're the two experts on Eastern Europe, and they know what this war is about, and they've talked about it in terms of their private posts and podcast programs and things. This, so they're not going to have them on TV because the narrative, they want to maintain the narrative. The narrative is that this is a provocation by Putin. And Mearsheimer and Sachs are too honest and too knowledgeable, and they are the most knowledgeable. I think they're the most knowledgeable person in the country on Eastern European politics. And I listen to what they have to say, and I see that they are not going to be, from what they're talking about, they're not going to be allowed on these programs. That's why they keep repeating the same ones over and over again. I want to see what they're going to say about. I'm very interested to see what they'll say about the pardon of Hunter Biden and the timing of it. But the thing that the pardon was to be expected. It's the timing of it that raises a question. What are they trying to hide by shutting it down when the last minute of the administration is going to be in 2 months? In January, the Biden administration is finished, and so you would expect to see the pardons on the way out of the administration, because you always want cover. The cover would be that the president is leaving, and then the pardon is, it's like he's, well, okay, pardon, but they're gone. He's gone. So you don't hear a lot of uproar over it. I mean, they do that all the time, and they do it for the same reason. It waters down the outrage of the pardon, because at least the person doing the pardon will be gone, and so the issue that is raised by it, the fact the president is doing things that using the pardon for political reasons, it doesn't resonate quite as badly if he does it and is going, and then he continues into functioning as a government functionary. He's gone, so whatever he did, it's kind of like you overlook it. But Biden did this 2 months ahead of time, and it raised the question of what would that be about, and that's something I'll be looking at, because these things will eventually unfold to show what it might be that they didn't want to establish a record, or to shut down the investigation, which Comer is doing. Comer is doing a investigation of the Biden family, and what this did yesterday, it shut down. It didn't just shut down the Hunter Biden case. It shuts down that whole all the things that were going on over there dealing with Ukraine, because that's where that's where the operation was centered, and the money laundering was going on because of that. A lot of that money that was passing hands because of the war in Ukraine. It's a cover they were using, and so it'd be interesting to see and look at whether or not whether or not everything shuts down. I want to see if Comer will continue anything at this point. I mean, it'd be interesting to see. I think Comer is very serious, but I don't know if you can contend that the investigation goes on now that there's been a comprehensive pardon put in place here. I don't understand what I'm trying to think about under what terms would the investigation continue into the crime family? It seemed like all of that would be shut down because of that, because that was a very comprehensive pardon that Joe Biden did, and then he did it earlier than you would then it would be the norm. I don't know. I can't think right now of any presidents that have pardoned so late in the term and then so early in the lateness of the term. I mean, you have 2 months and you're doing it at the end of the term, but you're doing it early in the early parts of the lateness of the term. You normally wait to the last minute to spring it upon the country. And they didn't do that. And that just raised the question, why was it at this time? I know the holiday just passed, but what was the real reason why that occurred at this point in time? There was some cover, the holiday and so on, but this was something else seemingly that had to be there to bring it about at this moment. You can always get the cover to for the pardon, but this happened right after Thanksgiving, and the question is what are they trying to shut down? And I think they're trying to shut down just how much vested these persons were in this criminal behavior, because that family benefited largely and lucratively based upon what was going on. There was a lot of money that changed hands in these last 4 years, and that really was why Donald Trump got in the first trouble he got into, because Donald Trump was dealing with Ukraine, not the way they were dealing with Ukraine, but just talking to Zelensky and establishing a relationship with Zelensky, and that was potentially explosive, and that's why you see that was the first reason they started trying to act like Donald Trump was you know how they dirted up his name at that point, talking about Russia and all of that. That was all about Ukraine, because Donald Trump was looking at what they were doing in Ukraine, and they wanted him off that. They were sending messages to Donald Trump, subtle messages: get out of this area that you're in. And there's something there that they're covering up right now. And I think it's the money is it's much more to the money laundering that is to be exposed. And they want that shut down, because once that's exposed, we're going to be able to. I don't think you're going to. The Constitution doesn't allow you to be helter skelter with things. You have to make a charge against Joe Biden right now. You can't do it once he leaves office. That's just the way the Constitution is written. You cannot. I know what they're saying here. That there's limited. The president has certain certain cover. That's not really true. There is no cover for the president's actions that are, but you have to understand the time period and the frame in which you must act. You can act against the president, but you must act against the president while the president's in office. And I say that based upon uh, going back to 1794 with the Jay's Treaty. Let me see. The Jay's Treaty would have been the president having sent John Jay over to negotiate, and I don't, and I think that's a problem too. But You're going to be over there negotiating under the umbrella of the executive branch of government. That's a problem. But that's what happened, and they wanted to see later on when they ratified Jay's treaty, and the vote, if I recall correctly, and I'm recalling correctly here, the vote was 20 votes for the Jay's treaty ratification and 10 votes against it. And that tells you what? What does that tell you? That tells you 15 states, 30 votes were cast, and the Senate must ratify the treaty with the approval of the president and so on. President approves the treaty and ratified, check and balance, and so on. And they want to see Washington's records, and Washington told them that they could not see his records because of the separation of powers, and then they're moving into the executive branch authority, and they had no authority to be there. But he told them that there was a way of entering into that arena, and that was through the impeachment process. And he's right about that. This is what we're not getting. The separation of powers stands as is. But because of the domains being separated and being peculiar to the three branches of government, each one in the corridor of 1/3 of the federal government's power, you might go out of control. And so, what the framers did in their infinite wisdom is that they set up a process through which, if the person behind that wall goes out of control, they can bring the person back into it based upon those persons that were either appointed by the president or the president and vice president of the United States. And they cannot stand behind a wall if they're in fact involved in violation. But to penetrate the wall, this is what the scholars are not getting. They can only penetrate the wall by going through a process, and that process is impeachment. That's the brilliance of the framers. They gave protection to the president of the United States at the same time putting a certain amount of protection over the institution, but it can be removed if the need was there to go into that to hold the politician or the person in the office accountable for it. Didn't mean that they didn't intend to have people not held to account because of the separation of powers. Isn't that true? They wanted accountability, but they didn't want persons just going in there and snatching power that wasn't to be there under the authority, because the powers are separated. But they don't want you being licensed to go out of control either. And so there's a process, and if people understood Article 1, Section 3, Clause 7, they would understand how that process operates. There's an Article 1, Section 3, Clause 7 provision that you have to go through. And that provision is that if he needs to vacate the presidency because of what? Treason. You want the president to be involved in treason, the whole country goes down. You don't want the president taking accoutrements either. So bribery is placed there. And then other high crimes, not this baby stuff, high crimes and misdemeanors. You don't want the president being removed for frivolous reasons, but you don't want the president to get away with high crimes either, because that endangers the country. these framers were something. When you think about what they did, they were able to give the necessary protection for the persons to do their job without worrying about things going awry because this party wants to come in and do an upheaval of that party and things of that sort. They had to stop that, but they had to also make sure that in licensing that not to occur, they license something else to occur that's just as injurious. And they were able to do both. Give an umbrella of protection so the function could be carried out at the same time, not allow the functioning to be at the point where it was also injurious by functioning in a certain way, with the power being in a cubbyhole of the government that's only allowed unto itself. So they did both, and they gave power and they restricted it by having a process in place to stop that, to stop the bleeding, so to speak. And they did that. And that's what Washington told them in 17 when they wanted to look at Washington's papers. The Jay's conversation with Washington and those files. And Washington told them no. But then told them that they could only get it, there was a way in which they could get it through the impeachment process. They had to impeach the president first and then seek the files. They couldn't get the files otherwise. The separation of power would block it. But the files could be gotten if the process allowed in the Constitution was the remedy to it was followed. Then they could get the documents that they sought, but not just by them asking for it. They go through the process of the Constitution that allows for that. And that's why people think that Washington invoked what's that thing they talk about that's invoked when they have the president talking about executive privilege. There's no executive privilege. They're saying that they said that Eisenhower. They said that Washington did that. Eisenhower invoked was the first to invoke executive privilege. Washington is invoking the Constitution, and they ought to impeach Joe Biden so we can see those. Because if they don't do that, they'll never see those conversations that went on between Burisma and the government and Ukraine and so on and so forth. They can only get those files by filing against the president who was involved in that, and they certainly can't do anything once he leaves office. Okay, I'm very surprised that Joe Biden did that, but I definitely thought he would, in fact, pardon the son. There's no way he's going to leave the son hanging out there. That's a given. And I'm looking now to see. Hope you'll stay tuned to it to see what is being covered up, because there's something going on here that would have caused the to move this early in that process. Okay. Pay attention and continue to pay attention to what's going on here as the president gets ready to take over, because the president is getting ready to do some great things, I believe. And we're going to see some things happening for the country that would not have happened if Donald Trump had not been successful on the 5th of November. Until next week, I want you to follow your dream. Until you follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.